Welcome to Hood Champion Boxing and Sports. In boxing, you find a way to win or you find a way to lose. It's no secret that I feel this is an easy fight for Canelo facing Terence Crawford. But shocking to many people, I'm picking Crawford. It ain't gonna be easy, I'll tell you that shit. I think Canelo should win the fight. But I just think he's gonna go out there trying to do something that he shouldn't do, and Crawford is gonna show everyone why he's special. But the way it should go is Canelo should win. And for me, there's just a lot of doubters out there. And Canelo Alvarez hears everything. And if Canelo walks in the ring against a guy like Terence Crawford, with the noise of the doubters in his ears and the roar of the Crawford supporters in the stands, that's going to give him some energy, man. And that's the kind of energy who can be turned into fuel and give Canelo a type of motivation that none of us have ever seen. And for those who are predicting Crawford to win, could all be sitting back saying, holy shit, what was that? You look at how he's preparing, who he's bringing into camp, and the stuff that he's doing. He understands that Crawford is no normal small man. And throughout his career, Canelo just shown a stubborn, pride and proving people wrong, just like Crawford. Whether it was silencing critics who said, he couldn't do certain things and handle slick boxers, answering those who claim he was avoiding opponents. I just think in this fight, the way the crowd split, the Mexican fan base is split on Canelo, I think it could sharpen Canelo's focus, There's going to be people cheering for Terence Crawford. You better believe that. But every cheer for Crawford becomes a challenge for Canelo. Every cheer for him is a reminder that he's not just fighting for a win, but Canelo is fighting for validation. And you would think with everything he's accomplished at 168 pounds, he shouldn't feel that way, but it's true. As a result, Crawford has a chip on his shoulder, but you know what? Canelo has a chip on his shoulder, probably now more than ever before. And that chip on the shoulder can push him to fight with urgency. And this is where it can either work for him or against him. That's what I'm thinking Crawford may be able to capitalize. But again, if he's fighting with urgency and Crawford cannot capitalize, then Crawford gonna make a statement. And that statement isn't just gonna be by defeating Terence Crawford. It's gonna drown out that narrative him being just a guy who's too safe, who's over the hill, who doesn't have it anymore, because those recent fights have helped to paint that narrative. But if he does the business against Crawford, Canelo's back in business. Now, for those people saying, shit, he hasn't done that in a couple of fights. All of a sudden you think he's going to do that, Hood? I'm just going to say his pride is rooted in his status. He likes being the undisputed champion. He likes being the big dog at super middleweight. It's a title he's already unified twice. Now, for Canelo, those belts aren't just hardware. They're proof of dominance in a division. And I think he diced up that division, less than a year? That's crazy. But the bottom line, being undisputed is part of his identity. Defending that status against a pound-for-pound guy like Terence Crawford, a chance to reinforce his place in history, which is, I think, is cemented, but some people feel he doesn't belong there because of cherry-picking, the PED, attacks. It's all kind of crap. But he knows that if he loses to Crawford, the image of him as a king of 168 takes a big hit, and all that shit that's going on with the Reynoso cartel, that's going to surface as well as saying, hey, Canelo's probably the first time he hasn't been on the juice. And I think that's unfair because, there's no proof of that. But if he wins, even against a smaller man moving up, even though people are going to try to hit him, he could just frame that conversation and his counter argument as, I'm defending the honor of the division. So anyone comes up here, they can get it. And I'm a Mexican. But the lessons from his losses to Floyd Mayweather and Bivol, I think they're central to how he'll approach this fight. I don't know just how much Crawford can capitalize, but he would think that a guy like Canelo has learned from that. Against Mayweather, Canelo was young, learned the truth about patience, rhythm. Can't chase no master counterpuncher around the ring, which is what Crawford is. At least if you do that, you got to have a plan. He admitted that he wasn't ready then. Take a look at where he's at now. Maybe he was right. He can stick to a game plan. And Bival's a little bit different. Got exposed a little bit, loading up power shots, single shots against a bigger, disciplined technician. This is what I think he's going to try to do to Crawford. And Crawford's just a smaller, but yet disciplined technician. And this is why I think Crawford can get him. But if Canelo is smarter, Canelo can win this fight. And it's gonna be ugly. You think about that night when he fought Bivol, actually, Canelo learned the importance of sustained output, conditioning, better pacing, and not letting frustration lead to predictability, which is what the Mexican crowd, the Mexican fans, that's what they could bring out of him. And this is where Eddie Reynoso's got to tell him, look, Saul, shut the F up. Listen, you're making the same mistakes you made with Mayweather and Bivol. You're making them with Crawford. We're down 6-0. Stop trying to chase and knock him out. You're being predictable. He's picking you apart. And let me tell you, with 6 rounds left in the fight, that's more than enough time for Canelo to knock out Terence Crawford, or at least do enough to where the judges, we already know them judges like 3 blind goddamn mice. They're going to see what they want, especially when Canelo's in the house. But we just got to wait back and see, because those 2 defeats, that's separated by nearly a decade. It gave him, I think it gave Canelo, we're not giving Canelo enough credit for understanding he may have the blueprint for how not to lose to a cerebral opponent right now. And that's what Crawford is. That's why when it comes to a guy like Crawford, he can't expect to simply copy the Mayweather blueprint, copy the Austin Trout blueprint, copy the Erislandy Lara blueprint, copy the Bivol blueprint. He can't just come and say, give me y'all playbooks. I'm going to utilize that. I'm going to walk away with a win. That's not how this works. You know, with Mayweather, again, success came against a 23-year-old Canelo, but Canelo been fighting for 8 years at the time. And Canelo didn't have the patience that he has now. He was in there young, dumb, full of green light. And you saw what happened. Then when he fought Bivol, it's kind of a similar situation, but different. The difference is Bivol was bigger. And those jabs from both of those guys, the straight right from Mayweather, the right hand from Bivol getting on the ropes, then turning on the ropes, spinning Canelo, everything he did, it just kept Canelo on the outside and kept him guessing. And the thing is, there are some tools that Crawford doesn't possess in the same way now. His jab is good, but it ain't like Mayweather's. As far as size, he's taller than him, but he's not bigger than Canelo like Bivol was. The reach, he's got a reach advantage like 4 inches, but I don't think his reach it may be about the same as Bivol. And the high volume of punches, Crawford can do that. But again, the footwork and the in and out and that Russian style Bivol has, Crawford doesn't have that. But he does it in a different way. So although Crawford's like the master of refinements and updates and adjustments in the ring, he's going to be facing a version of Canelo who's studied those styles, he's adapted to those styles, and probably going to come to the ring and going to surprise everyone, where maybe he early in the fight doesn't make those mistakes. Maybe at some point he starts, but maybe he doesn't. And that's the thing about Super Canelo. The dude from Guadalajara, Jalisco, he enjoys being a Mexican star. He spent years refining his ability to cut off the ring, slip jabs, force exchanges, but he does things on his terms. And if he can get into that rhythm with Crawford, the shit smells all bad for Crawford. But if Crawford tries to, the thing about Crawford, if Crawford tries to fight a pure stick and move battle, I think with the sparring partners that Canelo has in camp, I think his timing is going to be better. His body attack is going to be better. And you could see all of a sudden that somehow Crawford is finding himself getting trapped, especially if his thing is to move. Canelo's going to cut the ring off and trap him. And next thing you know, Crawford's getting beat up on the arms and all over the body. You know, Canelo ain't necessarily going upstairs. He beats you up. Next you know, Crawford's legs aren't moving the way he needs them to move. So at the end of the day, right, I just think the combination of the external motivation by fans and haters, I think you're going to motivate him to silence the hate, try to answer the roar of the Crawford fans. And I just think he has an internal pride in his undisputed reign. And I think those things are going to push Canelo to fight with a balance of discipline and aggression. But can he sustain that throughout the whole fight is the only thing. You know, he's been here before. He's been under the brightest lights. Crawford has once. Nothing like this. But there's a legacy on the line for Crawford and Canelo. But Canelo really has a lot to lose. So I think the difference for Canelo now is that he carries the scars and wisdom of past defeats. And he knows how to weaponize them. So for Crawford to win, he'll have to solve a puzzle because, you know, you could get a Canelo in there that we haven't seen before. And that this puzzle could be something that hasn't been solved before. So in a sense, Canelo could be unsolvable too. Just like Crawford being undefeated is unsolvable. So maybe there's they had the code of Hammurabi. Maybe this is the code of Canelo Rabbi. Maybe this is the Bud Vinci code. This is the Canelo Vinci code. You know what I'm saying? But the bottom line is, man, I think Canelo's going to do everything in his power to make sure Crawford leaves. Talking about the champion who turned that doubt into dominance. But I just don't know if Canelo can, if he can do what I'm saying, Canelo's going to blast Crawford up out of there. But he's got to show us that he can do something that he hasn't been doing. That's the problem. There's a pattern here. You understand? There's a effing pattern. But if he comes in and gives us something we haven't seen, that means that now, you know, he hasn't been solved. He's unsolvable, just like Crawford. And the fight becomes even more interesting. Y'all keep cool. I got to go get my boys in the breeze.